everyone, before I get into this video, I want to give a quick shout out to a guy named Wayne Curran who introduced me to a new editing program. You might have noticed it in my previous video that I uploaded. I'm using a new program. It's got a lot more features and it's a lot easier to use than what I was using prior. So I definitely want to give a shout out to him. He also is a YouTuber. You can find him at his handle Waitykiss. I will link him down below in the description, so make sure you subscribe to him. He's a super cool dude and I really appreciate him giving me the tips about this program. So without any further ado, welcome to the video! Hey everyone, it's Brianna Brockman and I'm here with another Brianna Talks video. Today is going to be a little bit different than my usual Brianna Talks videos. Of course, this is only my second one right now, but in the future they're going to be more similar to each other as far as like kinds of things I talk about. But this time I'm actually going to do a review. Last night I went to go see American Satan, which is a new movie out, and I thought that I would give you guys a little review on what I thought of the movie overall. So yeah, first of all, spoiler alert, major spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie or don't want to hear spoilers, don't watch any further. I am going to talk about the plot and such, and I don't want anybody in the comments going, "You gave away spoilers!" There's going to be spoilers. Don't watch if you don't want to hear it. But if you do want to watch, stay tuned, because I'm definitely going to go over everything about the movie that you need to know. Okay, so first of all, American Satan is a movie put on by Sumerian Films, Intrinsic Films, and Jeff Rice Films, and it was written by Ash Avildsen. I think I pronounced that right. It's obviously a small production movie. It doesn't have, you know, the big pizzazz that a big production movie would have. It's, you know, very small, but overall that I don't think that really much affected the way the movie was put together. The movie is about a rock band, a group of friends who half of them are from America, half of them are from England, and they come together and they go to live in LA, woo! To try to chase their dreams as an American rock band, or a rock band basically. They want to be the big next thing, which is like kind of a hit point for any fan of music, because like that's kind of every band's story, is they want to be the next big thing. So overall, like, they start out and they seem to be doing really good. They get a gig at, I believe it's called The Whiskey, on the Sunset Strip, which is a big hit point on the Sunset Strip for up-and-coming bands, and they get sabotaged by a rival band. Well, kind of a rival band, I guess. And through that emotional trauma, they end up getting kind of manipulated by a man named Mr. Capricorn, who is also the devil, and they kind of accidentally, on purpose, sell their souls to be the next big thing in music. And it seems to be going well at first, and it goes through this whole traumatic story of how it goes from them doing really well to suddenly their whole lives falling apart and like turning into a nightmare. So it was actually really good. So yeah, I'm gonna say that first. It was actually really good. I very much enjoyed it. But there were some things I want to go over. So first of all, it is rated R. Very reasonably so. I thought, like, rated R, you know, I've seen rated R movies a million times over. I'm 18 now, I can go in and see them anytime I want, but I used to see them with my family and stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, rated R, I can handle that, that's no problem, I see rated R all the time. This was very rated R. It was Game of Thrones level lack of censorship. Which, you know, is okay to some extent. It was really good for shock value. But yes, there was, I believe, 3 sex scenes, a lot of women nudity, very oddly done too. It was, yeah, it was pretty interesting. There was drugs, so yeah, also rated R, violence, very mature content, so I totally understand why it was rated R. When I first saw it was rated R, I'm like, why are they rating it R? Like, I thought, like, this was gonna be aimed at, like, you know, the fans of these bands that the stars are in, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of odd. Then I go to see it, I was like, okay, yeah, no, totally makes sense why it's rated R. I felt really bad because I'd brought my roommate and her friend along, and I thought, oh yeah, no, it'll probably be fine, and my roommate actually was looking away for parts because she was so uncomfortable with it. I'm a little callous because I watched Game of Thrones, but yeah, she still really enjoyed it, but like, you know, any parents who want to take their kids, I would highly recommend you watching the movie first before taking your kids who, I mean, you know, kids can handle a certain extent. I'm 18 and even I was a little like, okay, a little uncomfortable. So you might want to preview it first. And teenagers and kids who aren't old enough to go see it alone, I know you think you can handle it, but believe me, it was a lot worse than you would think. I was thoroughly shocked. The shock value was very strong with it. Very rated R, but overall that didn't really cause a problem. It was very good at making sure that it was very realistic to the plot wise, as far as, you know, the idea of being a rock band, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that was very prominent and unfortunately had to be rated R to be able to feature those things, but it did a pretty good job at that. Plot-wise with this movie, it was good. It was a really good idea. For a small production movie, I think it did a fantastic job. Obviously, as with any small production movie, there are going to be the pitfalls with the plot. This is where the big spoilers start coming in, so once again, if you didn't already tune out because I said there was going to be spoilers, now is really your time to tune out because I'm about to talk about some of these plot pitfalls in my opinion. First and foremost, when they sell their souls to the devil, Mr. Capricorn, human sacrifice, really? When he said human sacrifice, I just immediately was like facepalm, like, damn it. Of all the ways you could have done it, it could have been so less cliche. Human sacrifice is so unbelievably cliche for selling your souls, especially in the modern day. The fact that they didn't even get caught throws me for a whirl. Like, technically speaking, the way, so like, for those who haven't seen the movie, Mr. Capricorn says like, oh, you've got to, you know, kill somebody. First they're like, no, we're not going to do that, but then they get sabotaged by, I'm not sure if it was a rival band or just like a rival person, somebody who knew their bassist and like hated her. Their bassist was a girl, so that's a key plot point later. It was like they hated him because he sabotaged them. They'd gotten a really good gig and they'd sold out basically, and then all of the people left because they hear Metallica is playing a few spots over, which really it wasn't. It was just this rival guy who made it seem like Metallica was playing so that everybody would leave their show. Angry at him, they, you know, Johnny, the lead singer of the band, punches the guy, and then they kidnap him and they're gonna burn him alive in their van. And all that's going off in my head is like, they're gonna get caught. They're gonna get arrested for this. There's no way that that's gonna happen. That they do. And thankfully, like, Johnny has like a moment of moral recognition and realizes there's no way in hell I'm doing this, and he lets him go. And then of course the guy goes and gets electrocuted on an electric fence. So they still ended up selling their souls because it was still a death that, technically speaking, they caused. My main thing was the fact that it was cliche, that it was a human sacrifice. You know, like, it just, there were so many ways you could have done that better. You know, it could have been a blood pact. You know, something less less morally degrading to the characters, because you immediately start off with this idea that they're trying to maintain their morals. You know, Johnny's whole thing was that he was going to LA and it was no sex and drugs, just rock and roll, because he had a girlfriend back home that he was thoroughly committed to, and obviously drugs are bad. So, you know, it was like, the idea that it was so morally degrading to start off that way, like, kind of threw their characters, like their whole plot development, their character development. It was like, they're supposed to be these really, you know, moral, well, kind of moral people who are trying to do good without, especially Johnny, not getting involved in those bad things, but yet immediately it starts off with a human sacrifice, and then it goes back to, we're super high with our morals, but yet we just got somebody killed so we could sell our souls to the devil. A kind of confusing as far as that. And then once again, the fact that they didn't get caught, like the guy who was found dead, the fact that they didn't even, like, it was their van that was burned in the background. He was there. Any criminalistics would have been able to find there were signs of trauma, that he had probably been forced to be there in some way, shape, or form. Even if the death was an accident, there would have been an investigation. And the fact that they didn't get caught was kind of meh. But you know, it's a movie. They're not always realistic. Let's see. Plot pitfall number 2. Lily's character. She was so mysterious. Like, I understand that to a certain extent. She was a very talented bassist, so they really needed her, and I understand that. But it turns out she was working at like a, I guess, what, I can't remember the word they use. I guess you could call it a whorehouse. And they didn't even know for like 2 years. Because she wouldn't tell them. Like, that would have thrown so many red flags to me. Like, the fact that I've got somebody in my band who won't tell me where they work, that's a little shady. She was very sadistic too. When Johnny kills the guy at the bar in self-defense, she stands on top of the guy, like with her heel, digging into his crotch and telling him, like, die slowly or something like that. And it was caught on camera. That was kind of a missing plot point there. It was caught on camera that she did that, but it was never used in the movie. Like, that would have been like a huge thing on the news. This girl from this satanic band just told this guy to die slowly while digging her heel into his crotch while he died. Like, honestly, if I had been there when that guy had gotten hit, yes, he tried to kill Johnny, but I would have at least been trying to keep him from dying. But nobody did. Everybody just sat there and watched. Also, on that note, that country bar was the most cliche country bar. Everybody was wearing the same cowboy hat. I saw the same cowboy hat on 5 different people. I'm like, I understand the use of stereotypes in a movie, but it could have been done less obvious. Like the hick town rednecks, it was so unbelievably stereotypical. It kind of hurt. Especially because I come from kind of a country town, even though I live in California, and I know that they're not all like that. It was just kind of like, what are you doing? Let's see here. Another plot pitfall was actually towards the end. When Johnny goes to shoot, so to make their band the biggest ever, to like the band to go down in history, he was supposed to had a mentally unstable fan was supposed to attack him on stage. He was supposed to shoot the fan in the head and then continue playing like nothing happened. Obviously that's not exactly what happened, but like through this whole thing, Mr. Capricorn manipulates him because he's going like, I'm not gonna do that, no way in hell. And Mr. Capricorn ends up manipulating him into doing it anyway without actually kind of realizing it. The problem is the way the viewer in the movie, like from my perspective, watching the movie, I see that he comes out on stage, Mr. Capricorn is there standing, telling him these things that, oh, he was also Lily this whole time, and which actually isn't true, he was just lying. That, he was all making Johnny mad. And from the viewer's point watching the movie, we see Johnny pull a gun, put it to his head like he's gonna shoot himself, which scared the shit out of me, by the way. Excuse the language, but that scared me. I was like, do not end this movie with that. I would be so mad. It didn't, thankfully. And then he turns and points it at Mr. Capricorn and shoots Mr. Capricorn. So that's what you see from the perspective of watching the movie. But what actually happened from everyone else's perspective in the movie, like the audience that was there at that show and all of that, what they saw was Mr. Capricorn holding a gun to Johnny, or at Johnny. Johnny takes it and shoots Mr. Capricorn. And so it was kind of confusing because the way we see it was totally different from what actually supposedly happened. And of course it's the whole twist on like the devil, changing perspectives of the way that people see things, which I understand, but it was kind of confusing. more issues with the plot was the shock value of it being rated R. I understand as far as, you know, morally, like, the reason why they would have some of these, like, sex scenes and such, but to a certain extent, it kind of exhausted the shock value. It was like once or twice I can understand, but 3, I think it was almost 4 times, there was a sex scene. It kind of got to the point where it was like, it wasn't even developing the character at that point. It was literally just to have it in there. It didn't have any real value as far as character development. You know, the first or second time it was real character development against, you know, Johnny's morals, but then it was like, why is this here? You know, like, I felt uncomfortable watching it at some point. I was just like, I don't need to see this. You know, him screwing an 18-year-old for her birthday was a little odd. I was like, granted, he was coming off of a high from heroin, he was going through withdrawals, so he wasn't thinking clearly, I get that, but there was really no reason to have him have sex with an 18-year-old. That was just a little As well as the fact that the mom was involved with, what was it, Damien? Their drummer, in the other room. And then they go and have, like, they show, like, a cutscene of the mom and the daughter arguing, and the husband shoots himself in the head. Why? I mean, not one to judge on those things, but AJ, why? Why was that there? I don't understand. There's just some points in the plot, like, overall they did a very good job at portraying these characters and the way things happened, but there were some spots where it was like kind of felt unnecessary or a little cliche, but once again, granted, it was a small movie production, so, you know, it's understandable that these, you know, plot pitfalls, if you would call them that, happened. One thing is definitely for sure, I am nearly positive there's going to be a sequel, because the way it ended, by the way, Johnny breaking the fourth wall, staring at the camera, thanks for that. Like, totally threw me, like, I almost fell out of my chair, but, definitely looks like there's going to be a sequel, which I am excited for. I think it'll be interesting to see this, because this whole movie goes through the process of them being manipulated by Mr. Capricorn, and now it seems like it might take the turn of them fighting back against Mr. Capricorn. So that would be really cool to see, and I am looking forward to that. But overall, I did definitely enjoy the movie, even though it did have some of those, plot pitfalls that kind of threw me for a spin. I think for the kind of budget they had, they did a really good job with it. Another thing I want to talk about is actually the use of their budget. They did such a good job at representing Los Angeles. They had some amazing spots for their scenes, like the Sunset Strip and, you know, all these, like, places that you've seen in iconic movies, that places that are iconic to Los Angeles. You know, for a small budget movie, they used some really great places that seemed real. You know, the whiskey, and, you know, it was really, really well done in those aspects. It did a great job of representing Los Angeles. They even did a good job in representing Los Angeles with some of the crazy tourists and, you know, the homeless people. You know, I'm still new to LA, but even I know those things exist, and I thought it was really good. Also, humor in the movie was fantastic. I laughed so many times. Sometimes they were just super simple little snide comments that somebody would make, but it was so funny. I'm trying to think, there was one scene, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, the guy Boo Boo Stewart played, Boo Boo Stewart's character, was high on, or tripping on acid during an interview, and that was so unbelievably funny because he's just staring. And it was so funny. Like, it just had a great way of, like, even though it was very serious, like, it was a thriller movie, so it was very serious, it had a great way of, like, throwing in some humor here and there to make it way more enjoyable, and kind of break the ice a bit, if you will, like, not keep it too serious that it hurts. It was nice breaks to have some comic relief in there. I really enjoyed that. Very, very funny. Another thing I want to go over is the soundtrack. Wow, this soundtrack was so amazing. I am honestly probably going to buy the soundtrack. They had some really great stuff. Obviously, because it's about a band, like, they have some of the band's songs, which are actually songs that were written by, you know, the music writers, and the lead character, who is played by Andy Biersack, they couldn't use his voice because of, like, things with his contract with his own band, so they used the voice of lead singer from Palais Royale. I'm suddenly blanking on his name, who, by the way, has a fantastic voice. If you have not listened to Palais Royale, I highly recommend it. They're very interesting. But they use his voice instead, and some of those songs were fantastic. I mean, heck, when Let 'Em Burn was released for their soundtrack, it was #1 on the iTunes chart for like 2 weeks. It was great. It's really great, and they have so many good songs. They had covers of some other songs. There was a cover of Korn's "Freak on a Leash." They had some the Pretty Reckless in there. I was jamming this whole time. I'm sitting in the back of them, like, singing the lyrics. They had actual songs from Palais Royale in there as well. Mr. Doctor Man. There was another one I can't remember off the top of my head. It was really good. They did such a good job of utilizing the songs to represent the moods, as well as represent the theme of the story, which is about a rock band. So instead of having pop songs or anything like that, they had rock songs, and it was really good. That was fantastic. Oh, the soundtrack was so good. I highly recommend you listen to it if you haven't already, because it's so good. And lastly, I want to talk about the acting and the actors. First of all, I want to give the biggest round of applause to Benjamin Bruce, who played Leo. He was fantastic. He was so good, especially at the part where Ricky dies from an overdose and he's crying and sobbing. Like, I wanted to cry with him. It was so good, especially because I know Ben isn't technically speaking an actor. He's a member of the band Asking Alexandria from the UK. So him having an acting role is definitely not exactly his forte, but he did such a good job. Ooh, actually they all did really a good job. There were some actors that were a little less experienced, but I mean, once again, small production. They don't exactly have the bucks to get the big actors out there. They're smaller actors and actresses, but they did a really good job. So like Ben Bruce, fantastic job, 100%, a million kudos to him on his job as Leo, because that was fantastic. He really did a good job of portraying that. Once again, I'm blanking on the character's name. Boo Boo Stewart's character was really kind of like, he was like the moral voice of reason in the band for the movie. The band, I don't know if I said this band's name was The Relentless. That's a really cool name, by the way, for a band. Kind of jealous that I didn't think of that if I ever wanted to start a band. Now I can't use it. He was like the moral voice of reason, but even at the end, he was sort of like turning for a flip. He was on drugs, and you know, it was definitely an interesting degrading of his morals there. You know, his apparently his mom is super religious, and it was kind of an interesting turn on his part. Ricky, who is played by, can't remember his name. He played Sam in Game of Thrones. I can't remember his name. He did a really good job as well. I'm not gonna lie, I cringed a couple times in the very beginning with some of the stuff they did, but that was more of a plot thing than an acting thing. He did a fantastic job. I was very disappointed that his character died of an overdose. I'm not sure if it was cocaine. He was snuffing something. I think it was cocaine. I could very be wrong. I am not versed in drugs at all. I can hardly, the only way I know that heroin was used is because they said heroin. I would have never guessed it was heroin. I had no idea what it was. I was very disappointed that his character died, but he was like the blind leader. Like he was definitely good at his job, but sometimes he didn't talk the talk or walk the walk, and he was kind of blindly leading the group, which I think in many aspects kind of hurt them with where they ended up going. Yeah, so he was interesting, but once again, acting was fantastic. He did a great job with his role. I was really excited to see him in that movie. Lily, who I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the actress who played her. Her character was very interesting. As I mentioned earlier, really mysterious, kind of terrifying in some ways. She threw me for a spin a couple times. The fact that she had like said in the beginning, she's like, who's to say I'm interested in guys, you know, but then she seemed very interested in Johnny. I'm not sure if maybe she was lying or maybe she was bi. I don't know. I'm not judging on either way. Just like her character seemed to be kind of, yeah, very mysterious. Like just lacking some moral standpoints sometimes, I feel like. Let's see here. Damien, I think was his name. The drummer was very funny. Once again, I can't, Drake Bell. He was played by Drake Bell. That's who it is. I'm like, I know the name of this actor. Well, actually, he's from a band. Really good job. He was kind of the screw it all, I don't really care kind of guy in the movie, but he was really funny. Kind of some of the comic relief, which was really nice. Once again, the acting was done very, very well. Let's see here. Yeah, I already went over Ben Bruce's role as Leo. Once again, fantastic. Mr. Capricorn. Ooh, I can't for the life of me remember the actor's name. I'm obviously not like a big professional YouTuber. I don't have like notes written on the side over here. I've got a window in front of me. I can't exactly like break down all these things for me to remember. He's actually like a decently big actor and he did a really good job. Oh, he did such a good job as the devil. Very, very interesting. He was very charismatic and very frightening. Kind of just peering out of nowhere, and just his voice, the way he was like, he would talk really lowly and like he knew things that nobody else knew, which I mean he did. It was really good. Huge kudos to him. Lastly, I want to talk about Mr. Johnny Faust, played by the one and only Andy Biersack, also known as Andy Black. I specifically want to talk about him because he's actually the reason I watched the movie initially, or why I got interested in it. I'm actually sporting his band's shirt right now. He's the lead singer of Black Veil Brides. He also has his own solo career as Andy Black. He's very charismatic guy as far as like in real life. As far as his acting, he did a really, really good job. Seeing him kind of derail the way he did, going from being very high with his morals to cheating on his long-term girlfriend, as he put the love of his life, getting involved in drugs, more specifically heroin, killing, and then going to jail at the end, and seeming completely insane. He was very good at his job. He did such a good job at acting. I really, really enjoyed watching him. But the reason I really want to talk about him is actually because I want to talk from the viewpoint of a fan. So it's kind of obvious that since there's a lot of actors using this movie that are from bands, there was Ben Bruce, there was Drake Bell, and then obviously Andy Biersack. There's a lot of fans of the bands going, and what I want to warn fans about is that it can be uncomfortable. I'm a huge fan of Andy Biersack. I've been a fan for many years now. And like I said, he was the initial reason why I got interested in the movie. Obviously, like after I saw the plot, I was like, bruh, I want to see this. But initially it was like, dude, Andy's in a movie, I want to see it. Watching him act as a character, character that's totally not him as a person, especially when you kind of have an idea of who he is as a person. I used to be a really big fangirl, so like I used to watch all the interviews and stuff, and so I kind of have this idea of the way he is and knowing what he stands for, and seeing him go through these things that aren't him. See, even though I know it's acting and it's a temporary suspension of reality, it was very difficult. Seeing him cheat on his girlfriend was difficult. Seeing him with another girl that wasn't his wife was difficult. Because, I mean, you know, I love Juliet, and it was, I know, once again, it's acting, I understand that, it was kind of difficult to watch. Getting involved in drugs really hurt to watch. yeah, the sex scenes made me really uncomfortable because, once again, I know it's acting, but I felt like I was violating his privacy, and it hurt. It was so hard to watch. Like, I was kind of looking away at some points because it's just seeing him in those spots. So, you know, even though, like I said, I understand, you know, the reasoning behind, you know, having a big rock star in that movie so that people will want to watch it, especially fans. I do want to warn fans that it's going to be hard to watch sometimes, probably. Watching him put the gun to his head, like I said, shooting himself up with heroin, it was all just kind of terrifying to watch. That was probably my biggest issue with the movie, and that's not even a problem because of the production or anything like that. That was simply just because I'm a fan of Andy Biersack, and watching him go through these things as a different character was really difficult to do. So, but with that said, he did such a good job at portraying it. It made it very real to watch, which is a huge good thing. Even though it was hard to watch for me, it was still a good thing that it was hard to watch because he did such a good job. So huge kudos to him on his first movie and doing such a good job. I would totally want to see him star in other movies. I think he did an amazing job, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that all of the actors and actresses did a fantastic job. The characters were, for the most part, very well done, and I really enjoyed it. With that said, I'm going to end this video. It's kind of a long one, but I hope for anybody who wants to see American Satan, or is considering like taking their children to go see it, I hope that they have found some good information from this to give them something to think about. I highly recommend it. Very highly recommend it. It was a very good movie. I really enjoy it, and I really hope that it can get bigger and maybe even kick off some new careers out of it, because it was really good. So thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking up for me rambling, and make sure you leave a like, subscribe, all of that. Share the video, and you know, everything, all of that, and the above. I will see you in the next video. Bye!